Hi and welcome to the Beer Temple. I am Chris Quinn coming to you from down in our little cavernous dungeon here. I've got an interesting collaboration beer. We were kind of walking around seeing what beers we wanted to put on the show, and this one caught my eye. It is a Dark Belgian beer, kind of in the Abbey tradition, called Abtsolution. From the ABT, kind of known for some of the name shortening for the Abbey beer or Abt beers, St. Bernardus and stuff like that. And it's a collaboration between Proef from Belgium and Glarus from Wisconsin, and two pretty highly regarded brewers from those two places. Dirk Naudus from Proef, known as the professor, the Proef, and Dan Carey, the brewmaster at Glarus, who is widely regarded as one of the best brewers in craft beer and probably just beer in general. And they got together, and I think it's fitting that they did a Belgian beer since it was a collaboration, and pretty much anything Dan Carey puts his hand on or a stamp of approval on, I think is probably going to be worth trying, so I figured we'd give it a try. It is a 9% dark beer. Is it a double? Is it an Abbey ale? They're essentially the same things. Doubles are considered to be more of a monastic, Trappist style, or at least an Abbey style, where the Abbey style beer is pretty much anybody can brew that, rather than calling it double, triple. But there are no hard designations, so if you want to call it a double, you can call it a double. But stylistically, there isn't really that much difference. What they did is they used some Wisconsin-grown hops in it, and then in place of Belgian candy sugar, well, not necessarily in place of Belgian candy sugar, because that would ferment out and leave a kind of a drier beer with higher alcohol. They beefed up the mouthfeel and added a little sweetness with lactose, which is something that happens quite a bit here in the States in craft brewing. And they used actually Wisconsin dairy cows to provide the milk that then the lactose was made from. So a couple ties to Wisconsin. Glarus is very much known for being all about the state of Wisconsin. They are only available in the state of Wisconsin, and for that reason, and also because they're so highly regarded, people are really interested to try their beers. So us here in Chicago, it's not quite as big a deal perhaps as it is in other parts of the country, where they've literally never got to try anything from Glarus unless somebody brought it back from Wisconsin. Or there was also the Sierra Nevada Beer Camp beers, I think last year, where they had a Glarus collaboration as well. But you're talking about not very often. So this is the Abtsolution. Really nice clarity to it. Almost crystal clear, not quite. You saw already that there's quite the high level of carbonation that's very indicative of pretty much all Belgian styles, but definitely these Abbey style, Trappist style beers. Kind of a rocky, off-white kind of tan head, and like a brownish, auburn color to it. I don't really get a ton of hops. I think there is Chinook hops in there, which tend to be pretty darn piney, and Santium hops. I'm not really familiar with that hop. Perhaps it's like a bittering hop or something like that. These styles are typically not very hop forward, so I'm not necessarily looking for hops in it, but I just saw that they used Wisconsin hops, so I figured I would kind of see how noticeable they were. But mainly it's like a toasted, like a toasty dark fruit note to it. A little bit of like almost like a turbinado sugar thing going to some sort of like raw sugar, and just kind of a dark like fruit bread character to it, fruit cake. it's nice. You get a lot of that fruitcake flavor too. So it's like dry, dark fruits, a little bit of that kind of bready note, but also with slight spices to it, maybe some allspice, kind of those baking spices, as well as a little bit of like that burnt sugar, slight sweetness that you get in kind of those kind of, well, fruit cakes, I guess. The mouthfeel is surprising. So, a little bit full, but it's not really sweet at all. So it's got a fuller mouthfeel, but it drinks pretty easily because it's rather dry. It's got a little bit of bitterness to it as well, which is nice. A lot of times these beers, especially American versions, and a little sweet, and it's not as enjoyable, where this one does actually end with some bitterness and actually some tannin, which reminds me, not only was there the hops and the lactose that were added to it, it was also finished in American and French oak. So again, you've got the European oak and the American oak. I don't know if that has anything to do with the collaboration, but I'd kind of forgotten about it until I got this kind of tannic woody note right at the very end, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. It almost tastes like there's some wood to it, and there actually is. Now, you're not going to be getting a lot of that coconut or big vanilla flavors out of this. It's not like a bourbon barrel stout by any means. I don't even know if these were spirit barrels before. I don't know what was in them, if anything was in these barrels before, and I don't know how long they were in there for. What I'm mainly picking up is just a kind of a base wood character to it, and a little bit of like that tannic note. Yeah, really nice beer, worth picking up if you're a fan of Belgian beers. If you're not, but you're always wanting to try new Glarus, this beer won't make you like Belgian beers if you don't already like them. But if you do, it's a really nice, more on the old world side example of it. I tend to think that traditional Belgian styles are made best in Belgium. I think there are some traditional styles that the best examples are being made in the States. I don't think Belgian beers are one of them. I think these Abbey style beers, my favorite examples generally still come from Europe. So I think this is really nice. I think that added mouthfeel is kind of interesting to it. I like that it's dry. Another, I think, classic characteristic of European versions of these styles, specifically, Belgian examples of these styles. So very nice classic example of a Belgian strong dark ale from Proef and New Glarus. And that is about it, guys. Going to keep it kind of short and sweet. Thanks as always for watching. Reach out to us at via email at info@craftbeertemple.com, and you can follow us on iTunes and all the other social media places as well. Feel free to leave a review or a comment or anything like that on iTunes. We always appreciate it. But other than that, thanks for watching. We'll be back with next time with another beer or something. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but thanks, guys. I've got some great beer to drink, and hopefully you do too. Cheers.